Hi, I'm Andrew from Ether Automation, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to create a Zoho Creator app to help you manage your drop shipping business. So for most drop shippers, you get an order in from somewhere, and we're not going to worry about hooking Creator up in this video, but you get an order somewhere in from somewhere, and then you need to place an order with someone else. And the individual items there could be from different vendors. It could be fluctuating pricing from vendors. So you need to keep a good idea of what your cost is or what your profitability is per order, right? Because a lot of drop shippers will run a bunch of orders, but none of them are profitable. So the main thing is making sure that your orders are profitable, and we're going to be building a Creator app to help you manage that. So let me share my screen, and hopefully it's the right screen. Otherwise, this will be a short video. All right, so I've created a small Creator app. All right, this took me about 10 minutes. Right, I'm going to walk through this super quickly so that you understand the structure of this Creator app before we look at automating some of the functionality in there. So I've created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 forms and therefore modules in Creator. And this first one is the order form. This is essentially like a sales order or an order from a customer. Right, here's the name. These are just blank fields right now. We have the status, right? We have line items, which is actually a subform of the order line items. And I'm going to go over the details about that in a second. And then we have the total amount and the profits down here, right? And the big thing we're going to be doing today is calculating this profit on orders, right? So this line item subform here has these four fields. The product, which is a lookup, and we don't have any products. And before we actually demo this, so we'll create a couple. We've got quantity, we've got the total, and then we have the purchase order line items. So as a drop shipper, let's say you get an order in with 3 items, and each one, so 2 of those items are going to one vendor and one of those items is going to another vendor. This helps you line up the individual line items so that later you can see what your profit is, right? Because you may have one purchase order with a bunch of stuff and one with not a lot of stuff going to different orders to customers. So this should help you manage all that, right? This line item, again, this is the line item in the previous one. We just have additional field that lines up to the order. We have our list of products, which I have the product name and a vendor, right? And you can make this a lookup field if you want. For this demo, I'm not going to. For the next video, I'll show you some interesting things you could do with that, as well as the sale price. Finally, we have the purchase orders, right? So you have the vendor up here, the status of that vendor, as well as the line item showing us the product, the quantity, the total, and basically the line item in the order this is related to. And again, this will come into, this will be important later. And then of course we have the purchase order line items, which contains basically the same things. Cool. So let's go ahead and automate some of these things. So the main thing that happens is that when an order comes in, we want to have a PO for that order for the various vendors, right? And then you may need to get a quote from that vendor, which will eventually update that PO and therefore update the profitability. So we're going to do 2 things here. One is we're going to automatically create the POs when an order is created. And then 2, we're going to update the profit on the order when a PO is updated. So let's go ahead and click edit this application and dive into it. I'm going to click workflows. I'm going to do 2 things here. Right, so I'm not actually going to make this one yet, right? I'm going to start out with a standalone function, right? When working in Creator, you should use standalone functions as much as you can, right? So let's name this function, new order, Deluge, and the input is ID, and that's an int. And let's go ahead. So the reason we make a standalone function is so that we can call this from various places. All right. So when we do the second order or the second automation where we're updating the profitability of the order, we may want to call these functions from a bunch of different places within this app. So we're definitely going to make that one a standalone function as well. And the reason is going to make sense later on in this video. So let's start with the architecture here. All right. So the first thing we want to do is get the order. And then we want to make a list of the vendors required to fulfill order based on product info, right? And finally, we want to create a PO for each vendor. And then within that, we want to just note, make sure to link the PO line item to the order line item. Make sense? Cool. So in Zoho Creator, we can get the order by going order equals order ID equals ID. Very simple. Next, we want to, for each, and we want to go through the subform order dot line items, line item, vendor list equals list. And then for each of these items, we want to go vendor lists dot add line item dot it's going to be a product. And then within that product, if I go to products, there's the vendor. Okay, I had to change a couple of things. So we want to nest all the way down the order, the line items and the products, and then we get the product, and then we get the vendor from the product, and we add it to the vendor list. Finally, vendor list equals vendor list dot distinct which then makes sure that we only have one of each vendor in this list. There we go, and save. And then we're also going So now in order to create the PO, we should probably first check to see if there's a PO, but we'll do that in a later video. So now we're going to go through each item again, right? Actually, we're going to go through the vendor list for each record in the vendor list. Each vendor in the vendor list, right? We're going to go through for each line item. For each line item, right? And then within that, we're going to check to see if the line item is for that vendor, right? So let's actually grab the line item. Order line item equals order line items where ID equals line item, right? So then if the order line item dot product dot vendor equals the vendor, then we want to add this line item to the order, to the PO, right? However, in order to do that, we want to start by creating a PO to attach this to. New PO. And let's actually just drag this in here. Purchase orders, the status is draft. Vendor is vendor. Insert. So now we want to create the purchase order line items. So again, we're going to drag in this add the purchase order line items thing in each one. Okay, so the purchase order items, that is the order ID up here, but that's actually also the line item here. Okay, so let's do that. The product the quantity is the order line item quantity. And the total is the order line item. The total for now, we want that to be 0 because that will be updated later. And let me just copy this, paste that back. Now, you may notice a mistake here, right? I'm actually going to save this. And the mistake is that we're not adding the purchase order back up to this new purchase order, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the purchase order line items. I'm going to open the form builder, and we're going to add a lookup. And that's going to be the purchase order. I'm making the field the ID, and it's related to the line items in the purchase order. I'm going to click done. I'll put that up here. right? So I've saved this. Let me click done and go back to the new order. And now I can add that in. The purchase order line items. We have our purchase order right here. Purchase order equals new purchase order dot ID. There we go. So now when I create a new order, it's going to create the purchase orders based on the values in the product. So I'm going to pause the recording and I'm going to add some products in there with some vendors and we're going to test it out. So I've got my two products in here. One is a drink, one is a cat carrier from Tesla and Coca-Cola respectively. Now we have this here. So I'm going to click done. And I actually want to go to form workflow. I forgot to do this. So when an order is created, let's go successful form submission, create POs. And now all we have to do, Deluge script, is click this app, dot new order, input dot ID. I'm gonna click save and done. So now if I go to the orders, call it a test, add new, let's a cat carrier, and there's two, and I don't know. It's $100. Again, none of this is automated yet, right? And we're gonna do a drink, and there's 100 of those drinks, and the total is, again, $20 for whatever reason, right? None of this is calculating right now. We'll show that in another video. But if I submit this, right, I can now go over to the purchase orders, and I have two purchase orders. One is for this right here, right? Here's my drink, and here's the order line item. And if I go back, here's the Tesla one with my cat carriers, right? It automatically links the order line item. So if I go to purchase orders, right, I can see these are my purchase order line items. And then if I go to order line items, I could see these are the two order line items I've gotten. And I can see that it's linked to a specific purchase order line item, right? So that handles the front case, right? Now in the back case, you would need to go into this purchase order. Let's open one of these up, click edit, and you may need to get a quote from your vendor, right? So what we need to do is we need to have it so that when you update this, it calculates the profitability of the order on the order record. So let's go ahead and do that as well. So we're going to start with a function, and we're going to call this update profit margin, right? This is default. The return type is void. Arguments is ID, int. Cool. So how is this architecture going to work? So first we want to get the PO line item, right? Then we want to get the order line item, calculate the profit, update the order. Now this may only work for that one particular line item. So you probably want to do this for all the products on the order. So let's actually start, get the PO line item, get the order line item. Then we want to get all line items on the order for all line items. Then we update the order. So let's start with get that PO line item. PO line item equals purchase order line items where the ID is equals to the ID. Then we want to get the order line item. Order line item equals order line item. ID equals, this is my favorite thing about Zoho Creator. So what I could do is I could put this in, then I can go, okay, we're actually going to get the order line item, right? And in theory, if I want, I can also go get the what is it? Get the order line item. I could go all the way to order, right? Which I might do, but for the sake of the tutorial, let's continue down. So now we have the order line item, right? So now we want the order equals order ID equals order line item dot order dot no, let's do it there dot ID, and let's just make sure that saves. It does. So now I want to calculate the profits for all the line items. All right. So for each record, order dot line items, line item, order specific line item, specific equals order line item where the ID equals to the line item. And then now we want to get the purchase order line item, specific PO line item equals purchase order line items where the ID equals the to always check your variables. There you go. So now we have the specific PO line item. So if the specific PO line item dots the total is not null, now we want to calculate. So profit amount equals the order specific line item dot total minus the order line item dot total, and then we want to have a total profit equals 0. And then we want to go total profit equals total profit plus the profit amount. And finally, we want to update the order. So order dot profit equals the total profit. There we go. So I can actually test that without leaving the window I'm in. I go to all orders, open up this order, and click edit with the middle click. I can actually get the ID right here. Oh, this is based on the PO line item. Okay, never mind. Hold on. Let's go to the purchase order line items. They both have 0, so I'll middle click. And I can execute. It says it's executed successfully. So I can go to the order. I can open that in a new tab, and I can see my profit is this amount. That's the case because the total is 0. So if I got a quote from a vendor, updated, and I ran it again, you'll notice that my profit on it just dropped to $20, right? So let me save this and exit it. And I'm going to create a new form workflow for the purchase order line items. And when this is, let's say created or edited, on form submission, update profit. And all we're going to do, create Deluge script, this app dot profit margin inputs dot ID. And I'm going to save, click done. And now, so right now this this order has a $20 profit margin. Based on the PO line items, we have $100 for one of them. And if I edit this one, if I say it's $10, right? That was the price we got from the vendor for that item. When I update this, I'm expecting this number to go down to 10 because we're adding another $10 in cost. So if I refresh this page now, the profit margin is now $10. So again, this is not for all dropshipping use cases. You may not want to track per line item. There are other things you can automate in here. You could do it by the whole PO instead of just a particular line item. But if you have multiple vendors and you're placing POs for multiple orders, this might help you navigate that. In the next video, we're going to talk about composite items, or if someone orders from you and it's actually 6 items in your warehouse or with your vendors, how to navigate that. If you found this helpful, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.